The key is to create consistent results. The biggest thing is the results from the customer's perspective are consistent. I'm looking for people who have experience in building relationships with customers. I hire based off of character, not sales experience. Take care of the customer at any cost, and the customers will take care of you. When you're small, it's easy to let your pride and your ego get in the way.
That is one of the hardest skills to learn in anything, in terms of like the swallowing your pride, biting your tongue, just being humble and letting the rest take care of itself. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. Today I have Keith Dennis, KD Auto Repair in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. So thank you, Keith, so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be a part.
Yeah, so we're really excited to get to talking. Keith has 3 shops in Kentucky, within that area. But I kind of to kick us off, Keith, why don't you give us a little bit of a background, kind of how did you get started in the automotive industry?
Cool. Yeah. So basically, I've been a technician pretty much my whole life. Started really young. Just tinkering with cars. Always had an interest in cars. Started back, mainly in high school. I took tech school and just really loved everything about cars. So started just tinkering with cars on my own, learning what I could, reading up. Back then it was magazines. We didn't have a lot of the Google stuff that you could go on and find anything now. So it was hot rod magazines. It was import magazines, whatever it was, Haynes manuals, you name it, just to try to soak up as much knowledge as I could about cars, because I loved everything about it. So that was back in high school. Let's see, worked a couple jobs in high school with some local shops in my hometown of Lawrenceburg. It's a pretty rural community, a lot of farming. There's only about probably 6,000 people in the city limits, probably 20,000 in the whole county. So
Wow.
I grew up here, lived there my whole life. So I worked a couple local shops during high school as like apprenticeships, and out of high school, I got a job at a more of a corporate quick lube chain, and worked my way up from technician to manager. In about, I became a manager after probably 2 years of working there. I think I started when I was 19, and learned a lot about business. That's where I got a lot of my business background from. Their management training program was really good, and really heavy on customer service. That's kind of ingrained in me. Did that for a while, and then kind of got tired of the corporate life, and so I went back, went and started turning wrenches at a local repair shop. Did that for a few years, and then honestly, what kind of got me interested, I always wanted my own business ever since I was, in middle school, high school. I used to talk about it, and wanted my own shop, and or whatever. But once I kind of saw the corporate structure, and then the customer service aspect of the independent, like, quote unquote, mom and pop shop.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like there was a kind of a gap to fill, like, between the customer service aspect and the corporate side, the structure. So I thought, well, if I could come up with a shop that had this independent feel and was structured more like a corporate shop, then we would kind of have the best of both worlds. And so 2017, I left my full-time job and went and rented a building in my hometown. It's a 40 by 60 concrete block building. It's actually part of the shop. It's still in the same location today.
Wow.
We've added on since then, but that same building, it was a concrete block building, gravel parking lot, just nothing fancy, $600 a month. Didn't have any lights in the building when I got there, and there was some, halfway done electrical. So for the first probably 2 or 3 months, I just worked on the ground. Didn't have a lift, so I worked on the ground and used flashlights just to kind of do what I had to do. And then started saving up some money, eventually bought a lift. I ended up trading out some work with an electrician to come in and hang me some lights and wire me some stuff up. So, like I said, that was in 2017, and then yeah, from there we just kept growing and growing and growing. I ended up linking up with a business coach who I learned a lot of stuff about, or about business, and just soaked it all up, implemented everything that I learned from peers, people that have been doing it longer than me. So I just started implementing, and we just kept growing and growing and growing. So every year, so this year, this is what, 2024, so 7 years. We've had 7 straight years of growth since we've opened, and anywhere from 50% to 100% growth year over year. So we've just been on this just massive growth mode. So fast forward to today, we have 3 locations: Lawrenceburg, Georgetown, and Lexington. Third location just opened probably 2 months ago. So yeah, it's been a really fast 7 years for sure.
That's amazing. I mean, congratulations on continued growth. And so, I mean, I think that speaks to your strategy in terms of, hey, like combining customer service with that corporate field.
Right.
Definitely works.
Yeah, for sure.
The proof is in the pudding in a sense. And so I know, you have a passion for kind of the customer service side and kind of that focus. What kind of, I guess, first sparked that interest in terms of like, hey, customer service, like having that big focus there?
Yeah, so I think that to take it kind of way back, I was raised by a single mother, and my mom was always one of those people who was like, would give you the shirt off her back. She'd give you her last penny. She would go without to make sure that you were happy, and so that's always just kind of been ingrained in me. And then once I started working in the corporate world, I saw that, a lot of excuse me, I saw a lot of times that the corporate side didn't really tend to focus on the people as much. And I've always, I've always just been, I love people. Like, I love helping people. I love being able to, someone has a problem and you can fix that problem for them, and seeing what kind of impact it can have, on their life. I've just always really enjoyed being able to help people in that aspect. And that goes for, from an early age. Like I said, being raised by my mother was just ingrained in me. And then from a professional standpoint, same kind of thing. That's why I was really interested in cars on the performance side of things, but then also, like, it made me feel good when someone had a problem with a car and you could fix it and get it, back on the road for them, and, just see the look on their face, or see their reaction to, they didn't think there was any way they were going to be able to make this trip. And then you got the car fixed, and now their family can take this vacation. It makes you feel good. And so it's really been ingrained in me, just helping people and serving people from when I was a child all the way up through my professional career. So I have my mom to thank for that. So for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And so in terms of like your style of customer service, do you have like kind of set rules that, hey, I expect these 3, 5 things to be followed, or is it just more like a organic feel that as you, I mean, we'll get into how you really coach your team. I wanted to see like what kind of your methodology was, I guess.
So for me, the customer service aspect is, we focus on perception, and that is the customer's perception is what's most important to us. So whatever the customer's perception of service is, that's what we try to focus on. And so, and it's tough because a lot of times, especially as you grow, having systems and policies in place, but we really focus on, excuse me, man, we really focus on making sure that the customer's needs and their expectations are met, regardless of what that takes. Now we have, certain parameters built in that, certain people can only make certain decisions. But for us and our organization as a whole, our mission, it's customer service above everything else. So it's above fixing cars. It's above everything that we do. It's take care of the customer and make them feel good, because in this industry, auto repair is something that is a have-to business. It's not a luxury. No one wakes up and says, man, I can't wait to go spend, $700-800 on my water pump today. Like, nobody does that. So, and I know that, but it's something that you have to do. And so if we can just make that process as seamless and as pleasurable as possible, then it just makes the transaction and the transition for the customer that much easier. So our focus, just to kind of blanket statement it's service above everything else.
I love that. It's almost the style of, I almost feel like Chick-fil-A in a sense of like their customer service is so good that you almost, I mean, obviously the food has to be good, like, so the results in the sense has to be good, but like, because their customer service is so good, it makes it even feel that much better. And so that's why people keep coming back. Say, I love that style. And so I'm curious then, in terms of, I'm sure there was a good portion of the time that you had to be the service writer at the front. And then at some point, things got big, things got busy. You as a leader needed to step away. So you needed to transition to find someone else. Like, how long was that period where you were the advisor and then you found someone else? Or what did that look like?
Yeah. So for about the first probably 6 months, I was the only man in the building when I first started. So I was doing everything from service advising, ordering parts, to doing the repairs. And so about 6 months, then I hired my first employee. It was a technician who came in and could actually be wrenched on cars, so I could do both. So I could help him wrench on cars when I didn't have anything, but I could also break away and make phone calls to customers, order parts, do that kind of stuff. And so that's when I really first saw the power of having, a team and employees, and how much more you were capable of, right? So about the first 6 months, and then after that, it was probably another 6 months. So within the first year, I'd hired 2 employees, and every time I'd hire an employee, we would increase the same amount. And so that following year, I brought on my first service advisor. I'm not a salesperson. I've done it because I was in the position to have to do it, and I did good because I have the customer service aspect of it. So I just talk to people, right? I'm not a sales guy. I would just say, it's just, I'm having a conversation with you about your car. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that that's what we try to, we cater to that kind of that process in our organization. Is, our job is to inform. Like, we're not here to sell you anything. I'm gonna, professionally look at your car, and then we're gonna have a conversation about it, and then whatever is the best decision for you, we'll help you make that, decision. But we don't really have salespeople. We just have, people that communicate with the customers, and service advisors. I guess that's a good term for them. Is our goal is to just advise, not sell anything. So after I hired my first advisor, I guess that was in the beginning of 18. So that would put 4 of us. There were 4 of us there at that point. So yeah, for about the first year, and then 2018 there were 4 of us, and then that kind of theme continued just through and through until we opened the second location, which was a year ago. And then so up until that point, it was just growing the first location close to capacity. And then once we kind of reached a point where it was like, we can squeeze a little bit more out of this building, but it would be more beneficial to put our resources in a second location that, we could serve more people. And that's our ultimate goal, is to just, this industry is for a long time has kind of had a bad reputation of, mechanics take advantage of you and this and that. And I wanted to build an organization that people could trust, so everything that we do revolves around trust and communication.
Yep.
But, like you said, with Chick-fil-A, the food has to be good. We have to fix cars properly. I mean, that's just a given, but I think that that's any auto repair business.
Yep.
We don't necessarily have to do customer service well, but because we do, that's what separates us from everybody else. So,
Yep, absolutely. And so in terms of, I'm sure like throughout the years, like you've trained multiple advisors or maybe even have others train. What's the biggest thing that you wish that you knew going into the very first person that you ever trained as an advisor?
oh, let's see. What's something that I wish that I knew then that I know now? Um, probably, uh, probably take care of the customer at any cost, and the customers will take care of you.
Hmm.
I think that it's easy to get hung up on um, what things cost, and whether you did something right or wrong. It's easy to get hung up on that type of stuff, especially when you're small.
Yep.
Because maybe you don't have, a customer comes in and they're complaining about something. You did this or you did that, or your whatever you provided wasn't up to their expectation, right? And they want a refund or they want a discount or whatever the case may be. Like their perception is that you did them wrong. When you're small, it's easy to let your pride and your ego get in the way and say, oh, we didn't do nothing wrong. And now it's this back and forth, and you're ruining that relationship, whether you did it wrong or not. And a lot of that is driven by a scarcity mindset of, well, if I give this customer a refund, I'm going to have to eat that cost, and I don't necessarily have the money to do so. Or, you're stuck in this scarcity mindset of cost. When in reality, if you just take care of the customer's needs and their perception is that you did them wrong, make that right, whether that customer comes back or not. They may, even if they choose to not come back, when someone asks them, hey, have you heard about, this repair shop? They'll say, yeah, I went there, I had an issue, but you know what? They took care of it, and they did me right. People are, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. It's just how you handle them. And so I think that the biggest thing that I wish I knew back then was that if you take care of the customers based off their perception, in the long run, the customers as a whole will take care of you. And I know that now, and that's why we've been able to grow the way that we have, and that's our point of focus. But knowing that then, would have been helpful. So
Yeah, I think especially when you're small and obviously like profits aren't as large and like it's a harder pill to swallow. Like, hey, yeah, giving this refund, giving this discount. But yeah, I think that is one of the hardest skills to learn in anything in terms of like just swallowing your pride, biting your tongue, just being humble and letting the rest take care of itself. So yeah, I think it's an amazing thing to learn. But so in terms of your first service advisor, when you were training them, how did you go about it? It was your very first one, so obviously it was like, okay, it's new. It's like, how do I go about training them? Did you just say, hey, yeah, just shadow me, just stare at me and watch what I do? Or did you like within right away, you're like, nope, this is on, I want to see how you do it? Like, what kind of style did you have?
Yeah. So in terms of training advisors, what we took and the process has really kind of remained the same, because again, it's not really my expertise as far as someone who makes quote unquote sales calls or advising calls all day long. So the first advisor, I would probably say that it was more, we hired based off of a background, right? So they had extensive sales experience, with insurance and other industries and things like that. The biggest thing for me was to just focus on the process, not so much as like, hey, do it this way. as far, like say this, say that, and kind of script it out. It was more so, hey, let's do this step first before you call the customer. Make sure we have X, Y, and Z in place, and kind of just building parameters around the process in which the communication happens. Not so much the dialogue between the customer and the advisor. The biggest thing is, and even now to this day, when I hire new advisors, I hire based off of character, not sales experience. I don't really. I mean, if they have sales experience, it's great because that tells me they've been, used to talking to customers. But I'm not hiring them to sell. I'm looking for people who have experience in building relationships with customers, and so I hire based off character. So, one of my best advisors in the organization today had zero sales experience when she was hired in, but she had a great attitude and was very personable on the communication side of things. So, very positive, upbeat when she communicated. And to me, that's more important than the ability. So all we had to do is really train her on, hey, here's our process, follow these steps, like make sure you have this, make sure you have this, then do this, and just kind of build that those guidelines around it. And then it pretty much, kind of takes care of itself at that point. So, and again, my process from the very beginning until now, luckily has been, and I will say in the beginning, I was hung up on, I just need somebody that knows how to, sell repair services. Because I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So it has evolved from the type of people that I'm looking for, has switched from heavy sales background to more just customer service oriented. But the process in which we train has kind of remained the same. It's all on the process. So
yeah, actually, I think having a hospitality background of any kind, like it goes a long way in terms of like you can teach the nuts and bolts in terms of this, like what the verbiage should be, but like teaching someone how to like properly respond to someone's like negative tone or anything like that. Like that's a lot harder to be able to teach. It can obviously be taught, in my opinion, but it's a lot easier when it's more natural coming from the heart.
I definitely agree. I think it's, I can teach you how to, how to do, and it goes, for technicians or anybody, like I could teach you how to fix a car, but I can't teach you how to, show up to work on time or show, like there's certain things that you just have to have. And those are the things that we look for, the things that you have to have, the things we can teach, we're not as worried about.
Yeah. So now, like obviously you have 3 shops, and so are you the one that personally trains the advisors, or is there someone else now at this point that also trains the advisors in the team?
No, so I'm actually at this point. So I've been hands off of day-to-day operations for about 2 years now, a little over 2 years. So I have a district manager who manages the day-to-day operations of all the shops. My focus now is strategy and marketing, those types of things, recruiting. I do a lot of that stuff. And we actually, fortunately, now we've gotten to the point where we're starting to establish a corporate team because our goal is to open more locations. And so with the team we have now, we're starting to build out our corporate team. So, and part of that team includes trainers. So we already have a technician trainer on staff who goes to each location. So if we get a new technician, trainer goes to that location, and we'll actually spend time with them, teaching them the process and how we do things. And then he'll go to the next store, and then he'll kind of just fill in and float if we don't have any new hires. And then we work on new training procedures to train on. So like if a new tool is released or a new procedure on how to test for this or that comes out, we try to keep all of our guys, up to date on that stuff. And in terms of advisors, because it's really heavy on just the process, the district manager will do the same thing. So if we get a new advisor, she'll go in and spend, 2 to 4 weeks working side by side with them and just teaching on our process. And we have a basically a training plan. Like day one, these are the things that we work on. Day two, these are the things we work on. And we try, when we don't move to the next step until, the advisor or the technician is competent in those steps. Because for us, we like to look at our organization as a assembly line.
Mm.
As the car's coming down the assembly line, the dash goes in before the seats are put in, right? Like you don't put the hood and everything on and then put the engine in, or whatever. So it's like there's steps that you have to follow in order to make the end product be consistent.
Mm.
And so we've pretty much built our organization the same way. The process that everyone follows is the exact same between all three locations. So you could pull any employee from any of the stores and stick them in another store, and they could pick right up and it moves just like they were at their home store, because we treat everything like like an assembly line. So that's what's made training kind of the process streamlined for us. Is we just focus on the process, and it's either you have those other skills that you can't teach or you don't. And that's how we determine whether you are a good fit for the team or not, is if you have those skills. Because if you don't, the things that you can't teach, if you don't have those things, it usually exposes itself fairly quickly. So
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So that's what I was just going to ask in terms of like the interview process. Sounds like then you're just kind of it's a lot of culture, character-based questions. And so, like, what are some of those questions maybe that you're like, yeah, these are like the go-to that usually gives you clear indicators of like, yep, they'll fit, or no, I did not like that answer at all.
For sure. So yeah, and it's all about culture, and it's we ask a lot of questions like how would you handle a an issue with a coworker? Like if you had an issue with a coworker, how would you handle that? What would you do if a customer said this, or how would you react if this happened? A lot of scenario based questions, just to kind of get a feel of where their head's at in terms of how they would react. But yeah, it's all very character and situational type questions.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot because I mean, obviously, people can give the rosiest answers in the interview too, because some people are just good interview takers in a sense, and others are not, and they're like, oh yeah, I thought they were awesome, and when work actually happens, like, okay, well, who is this person? What is going on? But
and we've had that, we've had people that are, professional interviewers, right? Like they come in and they say all the right things, but then when it comes down to it, that's not how they are. So, we've just, you've heard the expression, hire slow, fire fast. I'm sure. We tend to, we've been in rapid growth. We like to give people chances too. I don't like to, judge people for what's on the resume. Like I try to, we have a rule that if you want to interview with us, we will sit down and interview pretty much anybody. Because again, I'm looking for character. I'm not looking for experience as much, because I can teach you the stuff that you would need the experience in. And so, it's just it's one of those things that we really put a lot of focus on, just the interaction part. So come in, sit down with us, interview. Let me look at me face to face. Like how do you, when you walk in, do you shake my hand? When you're talking to me, are you proper? Are you polite? Or do you, cuss or this or that? We're looking for all those types of things. We're not looking for how many years you were a service advisor at a dealership or whatever. Like that doesn't really mean much to me. So,
yeah, no, definitely. Like it kind of correlates with me as well. As I'm a big believer in like, yes, if we interviewed you, like we're gonna make sure we devote that time, and then if you're on board, I don't necessarily fire fast. I just give 100% trust off the bat in terms of like, hey, I trust you, and so thus I want that to be reciprocated until proven otherwise.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We I kind of got off track, but hire slow, fire fast. We tend to hire fast, fire fast.
Yeah.
So we'll give somebody, hire fast in terms of like, we're not going to make you jump to a bunch of hoops. Like if we like you, we'll give you a shot. But as soon as we realize that we've got a cultural issue and you don't fit in, we're gonna protect the culture at all costs. And if it's again, if it is hey, I don't know how to do this, we'll work with you until you get it. Like that's not the issue. But if it's a cultural thing, like, oh, I'm not doing it this way, or you guys are doing it all wrong, or whatever. Like, if you can't get on board with our process, then we're not going to waste any time. I don't care how good your skill is. I don't care if you're the best. You were the top salesperson at any of the top dealerships in the world. If you can't get on board with our culture, then we don't have a place for you.
Yep. No, 100%. And sometimes that's hard to shake for people when they've been at
Sure.
someplace a long time. It's like, oh, wait, what is this different way of doing something? But
yeah,
when they realize, like, God, if you buy into the team, everything takes care of itself. But I think I like that you talked about, like, a lot of focus on the process and building those. I think once the process is simplified and understand that, it makes it easier then to focus on the customer service side that you kind of mentioned, where, like, process becomes second nature. So now you can just focus on, like, hey, serving this person, and how do we make sure that we take care of them?
Yeah.
So I like that.
And that's the thing is, it's kind of like, again, kind of back to the assembly line. If you do the same thing, like if you work in a factory and you're on that assembly line and you do the same thing over and over and over, eventually that stuff becomes, you can do that unconsciously, right?
Mhm.
So making the stuff flow through the shop the way it needs to flow through is an unconscious thing. So then you can use your just conscious brain to just focus on making sure that we're holding up our end of the deal, for the customer. Like, do what we say we're going to do. That's huge for us. If you tell a customer you're going to do something, whatever it is, you better do it.
Yeah. That's not no magically just taking it back or pretending you didn't say that. So
Right.
yeah, no, definitely. And then, so then in terms of your processes, then, so it sounds like it's pretty established and written out. Like, how did you literally, like, hey, I'm gonna sit at the computer, I'm gonna type out this whole process, or did you make, like, videos of yourself doing things? Like, what was your style of, like, building out that process?
Yeah. So it's a combination of a lot of things. So I mentioned that, I've had a business coach since the beginning,
Mhm.
and I have utilized a lot of things that I learned from peers,
Mhm.
people that were already doing what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I learned a lot, and then we kind of put our own twist, like took a lot of the things that were already tried and true, and then just built on those. So I just, made friends with a lot of other successful shop owners, took some advice, bits and pieces of what each person was doing, and then built a system within my organization that worked for me. And we probably went through, and we still tweak our processes today. Like I've got a conference call later with my corporate team on changing the way that we do inspections to
Mhm.
streamline it for the technicians and just make it easier. Because efficiency is, we get the car back to the customer faster, like just being super efficient. So we're constantly looking at ways to improve, even now after all these years. But we probably went through 7 to 10 different ways of what we call key to key. So like the
Yep.
key drop off to when they pick up the car,
Mhm.
the process in which the car goes or the customer interaction goes through. We probably went through like 7 to 10 different variations of that before we found something that was like, okay, this is it. And then once we honed in on that, that's when we were able to kind of copy and paste into the other locations. And then now, being multi-shop creates a whole new set of problems, right? Because with single store, what works for a single store doesn't work for 2 stores.
Mhm.
And what works for 2 stores doesn't work for 3 stores. And so you constantly have to be able to adapt and be able to just say, hey, look, I know we've done it this way for years, but to get to where we want to go, this doesn't work anymore. We have to throw that out the window and try something different. Having that ability to adapt and accept that is crucial for growth.
No, definitely. And so obviously, now that you have multi shops, now that gets harder, I think, to implement across all three and make sure that they're all consistent. So how do you go about that checks and balances in terms of like, hey, like, is this one the same as this one? Because obviously no one is they're not going to be equal performers no matter what. I mean, just based on where they're located alone.
Right.
But like in terms of that consistency across the board and that brand being consistent, how do you check to make sure that yes, this is the same here as it is here?
Right. So the first thing is you have to have good processes in place from the beginning, right? So you have to develop processes. And so we try to what we focus on is if a problem presents itself over and over, then what we do is we say, okay, this has happened. If it happens one time, we just handle it and we don't worry about it. We have a rule, don't make a process for the 1%, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't develop a process around every scenario because there's going to be a scenario you didn't think about. So if it just happens once and it's every once in a while, just handle it in that moment and it is what it is. But if it's something that you're seeing pretty consistently, so once a month, twice a month, once a week, whatever, naturally, the more that you see this particular problem pop up, we say, okay, here's the problem. We identify a solution. So this is the issue that we are dealing with. Example, a customer wanted to pick their car up at the end of the day, but they told this advisor, and that advisor was the only person that knew, and no one else knew, and they forgot. So now the customer wants to pick up the car, and this advisor forgot to tell everybody, so nobody else knew, right? So if that's happening a lot, that's an issue, right? That's the problem. So what's the solution? We ask ourselves, what's the solution? How can we prevent this from happening? And the issue is only one person knew. Okay, so how can we notify everyone within the shop that this car has to be done today? And for us, it's as simple as just color coding that car a certain color, right? So for us, it's green. So if that car, the tag or the system that we use to manage these things, if that tag is colored green, then everyone is trained and everyone knows, okay, if this is green, that means it has to go today. So without having to, if that advisor had to leave, go home, was sick, whatever, it doesn't hinder the goal of that car needs to go home. So then it's a 3-step process. It's identify the problem, what's the solution, and then how do you integrate it into the day-to-day? It's those 3 things. So identify the problem, only one person knew. What's the solution? Color code the tag so everyone knows and train on it, and then integrate it. You make it part of the day-to-day operations, and so now that problem's fixed. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as they do that, as long as they color code that process, they color code that tag green, you won't have that issue again. Everyone will know that car has to go today. And we just do that with every issue that pops up over and over and over. You just build a process around it, and then you hone in on it, and that's it.
I love it. Yeah, it's obviously it's a lot more complicated in terms of creating the process.
There's a lot of processes for sure.
Yeah.
Creating the processes and figuring out, okay, how do we do this? That's the hard part. Saying, oh yeah, this works, and implementing it and getting it done. That's a lot easier. And then once you have that process, then you have to create an auditing process to ensure that they're following the process that you created.
Yeah. And that's another process to create too.
You don't have to do that. It's easy to do that if you're in the shop every day, right? You know that they're doing what they're supposed to because you're there. But if you want to be a true business owner and hands-off owner, you have to have auditing processes on your procedures in place to know, okay, are we dropping the ball in these areas, or how are they doing on these things? You have to audit the processes that you put in place.
Yep.
And so then that's a whole new set of processes on the processes that you already made. So I
think that's one of the hardest leaps, I think, for a lot of people where they're the business owner, but really they're making this, hopefully high paying job in a sense. Hopefully you get to that stage where it's a good paying job, and then how to get out of that job phase to now being the owner. A lot of it comes down to process and implementation that a lot of people just don't realize. And I think that was
100%.
one thing for me is as we were growing and scaling, it was like, okay, a lot of things I just do in my head in terms of like, yeah, this is how it's done. I know how it's done, but then as people come on board, they're like, they can't just read my mind. They don't know exactly what I'm talking about. So then it came down to like, okay, sitting down, make a video recording, exactly doing said step. Okay,
Yep.
but then someone can now put it into a format where it's like these are the procedures, but like you as the original owner, like you know how you want the business to be run. So it's not something that you can just hand off to anybody. Like, oh yeah, you can make the process of how this new shop should open. Like, no, like that branding would be definitely not consistent. So
yeah, and we're trying, like, the goal is, we've been slowly building out our digital operations manual. Like, we want documentation on how to do every single thing in the business, so that if all of a sudden, everybody disappeared and one person came up and was, wanted to start a repair shop and run it effectively, they could open up this operations manual and then just follow it. And there it is, because for us, that's how we get to, my goal right now is, 10 locations. And so for us to go from 3 to 10, having that operations manual dialed in, because not all of them are going to be, easy to get to, right? Like traveling between the stores becomes an issue at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they're all fairly close. They're within 40 minutes of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you expand, traveling from store to store and being able to be there as much as you like becomes an issue. So having the operations manual as a guide that everyone can refer back to, again, kind of keeps, and we use a combination of, digital as far as like text. We do video to try to, speak to everyone's learning abilities, right? Like some people would prefer to read it and just follow it step by step. Some people would prefer a video. And so we've been building out that manual to where no matter how you learn, we can kind of cater, or you can get something from the way that we operate.
Oh, that's super cool because everyone doesn't learn the same, and so yeah, having a slightly different style probably will work better for that person than this person. Sure. And that's really smart. It will definitely make your life easier as you continue to grow locations. Yeah, because one thing I read about, like, so McDonald's, they have it down to like where like the burger needs to be on there for like 3.7. I mean, it's throwing out random numbers, but like it literally like to like the second of terms of like before you flip them, and then it has to be at this angle, the grill marks being this way. And literally like anyone could just read it and be like, "Yep, this is how you do it," and they could just follow the steps and make a burger. Like, because again, that's very, very high turnover in terms of employee basis, though. Like in terms like probably got young kids going in and out of there, and so being able to follow the rules, but building a process that way for anything.
Well, it speaks, and that transitions to pretty much any industry, because here's the thing, let's all be honest, in my opinion, McDonald's isn't like it's not my choice of food to go and like enjoy every night, right? But there's a lot of people that do it, and I go to McDonald's, right? But I don't go there because I love it. I go there because it's consistent.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is to create consistent results. So when people use you, regardless of whatever the business that you're in is, they know that, okay, I know I can go here and get this result, and the result has to be sufficient enough for them to keep wanting to come back, right? It can't be, I have to enjoy McDonald's to a sense of like, it has to be okay, or I would, if it's disgusting, I'm not going to go there regardless. But if it's like, hey, I don't really love this, but I like it a lot, like it's convenient, I'll go there. But having a business model of consistency and consistent results, that's why they've been able to grow the way that they have, is because for the most part, you can go into any one of the locations pretty much anywhere, and the result is going to be pretty consistent.
Yeah, the look of it, the packaging, everything. I guess it's like you know what exactly you're getting.
Exactly, and that's the key. That's something that you have to focus on from a single store to multi-shop, is because some people will utilize, maybe they live in a town that you have a shop, but they work in a town that you have a shop, and they use both. You want those results to be consistent. That's part of your branding, right? You want to make sure that when they visit this store versus that store, that they don't get two different services.
Yep.
So that's a whole nother problem in itself, is creating consistency amongst the process, because you got different people that run them. You have none of my stores. The culture is very different in the store. Like I've got some stores that are a lot more quiet, kind of keep to themselves, and then I've got more that are like more interactive and talk a bunch, whatever. But the biggest thing is the results from the customer's perspective are consistent. And that's what matters.
Definitely. Well, I think we hit a lot of things right on the head, Keith. And so I appreciate all the wisdom that you kind of brought to the table today.
Sure.
And for like one last piece of advice to maybe someone that, we'll go with the scenario of someone going from one shop to now trying to get to the second shop. What would be your main piece of advice for this particular individual in this situation?
So advice for someone who has one shop and has been looking and they want to go to a second shop. You need to, systems and processes, hands down. Workflow management is number one. So have some sort of workflow management that you know where each vehicle is in the process at all times. And then you need to establish nonverbal communication. So you don't, if everyone is talking to each other in the store, like if I wanted you to know something, and and your process is I walk up to you and I tell you that is not a scalable way to run a business. You want nonverbal communication. So something that is through a platform that you can, that's time stamped, that if that person is off and someone else needs to fill in, it can be monitored, it can be audited. The two biggest things, well, actually three, is nonverbal communication, workflow management, and then the third thing is, and this is the most important, you need to be able to be 100% absent from your shop for 3 to 5 months. Like you don't even step foot in your shop at all. You don't answer a phone call, nothing. And that shop will continue to run the same and or grow without you there. If you don't have those things in place, I wouldn't even consider. And then there's the money aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't care if you have all the money in the world. If you don't have those things in place, I wouldn't pursue it.
Awesome. So, well, for those that maybe want to reach out to you personally, like your story resonated with them, or some of the tips that you had, that like, I want to learn a little bit more. Like, what would be the best way to reach out to you, Keith?
Probably via email would be the easiest way. So it is you can just my personal. I have an old school Hotmail email.
Oh, there you go.
It's Keith Dennis 89 at hotmail.com. So that's my personal email. I would love to, to help anybody that's in a situation that, they feel like I could help them or benefit from something that I've said today. I would love to help. That's something that I really enjoy. So.
Awesome. Well, Keith, thank you so much again for being on the podcast today. I'm Kelsey with Lift Auto Repair Marketing. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks.